Start your day like a champion. You want to win like a champion? Then you got to wake up thinking like one. You got to rise up with intention. Champions don't roll out of bed whenever they feel like it. They don't wait for motivation. They create momentum. The moment their eyes open, they're already working, already focused, already ahead. See, the way you start your day sets the temperature for everything else. If you start lazy, you stay lazy. But if you start hungry, if you start with purpose, that hunger follows you. Champions start their day in attack mode. They don't react, they lead. They don't scroll social media for dopamine. They scroll their goals, their vision, their purpose. You want success, but you can't be casual with your mornings. Casual mornings breed casual results. Champions rise before the sun. They beat distractions, they beat doubt. And they beat the version of themselves from yesterday. Some of y'all are praying for success, but sleeping through your opportunity. While you're sleeping in, the champion is grinding. While you're snoozing your alarm, the champion is already sweating in silence. And that's silence. That's where greatness is built. It's not about having time. It's about making time. Make time to read. Make time to train. Make time to pray. Make time to strategize. Champions don't need alarms when purpose wakes them up. Every single morning is another chance to get it right. Another shot to dominate. So don't waste it. Don't waste it. Don't wait until you feel good. Champions act their way into feeling. They show up even when they're tired, even when it's dark, even when no one is watching. Start your day like a champion, and soon you'll live like one. Every win starts with how you begin. So rise with purpose, grind with discipline, and walk through your day like it already belongs to you. You weren't born to be average. You were born to be great. But greatness starts the moment you open your eyes. Champions don't wait for the alarm to wake them up. They beat it. Long before the rest of the world opens its eyes, they're already on the move. They're not lying there negotiating with the snooze button. They're not saying 5 more minutes because they understand something powerful. Every second counts. Every minute lost in the comfort of a warm bed is a minute stolen from the grind, from the goal, from the dream. Champions live by the idea that if they want something they've never had, they must be willing to do something they've never done. And for many, that starts with waking up before the world and putting in the work when no one else is watching. When that alarm goes off, the average person hears snooze. But the one chasing greatness, they hear opportunity ringing. That alarm doesn't annoy them. It excites them. It's not just a noise, it's a call to action. A reminder that they have another day to get it right, another chance to improve, another shot at becoming everything they said they would be. See, the difference between average and elite starts with how they treat their mornings. You can't talk about being a champion and still wake up like a loser. Champions know it ain't about waking up when it's convenient. It's about waking up when it's necessary. This isn't about just getting up early for the sake of it. It's about what happens in those quiet hours before the world starts moving. That's when clarity is loudest. That's when you can think without distraction, plan without noise, and act without pressure. Champions beat the alarm because they understand the value of those early hours. They know that success leaves clues, and one of those clues is discipline. Discipline over comfort. They train their mind and body to respond to responsibility, not to feeling. Because they know feelings are inconsistent, but purpose has to be permanent. A lot of people say they want to be successful, but they don't want to wake up early. They want the results without the sacrifice. But champions live differently. They don't just set the alarm, they set the tone. The day doesn't run them, they run the day. The moment they wake up, they're thinking about how to win, how to get better, how to separate from the crowd. Because they know the grind, doesn't stop. It doesn't take breaks. The grind doesn't care if you're tired, if you stayed up late, or if it's cold outside. The grind only responds to effort, consistency, and hunger. People see champions on the podium. They see the medals, the money, the lights. But what they don't see is the 4 a.m. wake-up call, the cold floors, the aching body, the dark roads with no applause. That's where champions are made, in those lonely mornings. In those quiet battles, when the rest of the world is asleep and you're up doing the work nobody sees. That's the difference. You can't fake that. You can't cheat that. You either want it or you don't. And if you do, you're going to have to beat the alarm. When you beat the alarm, you're doing more than just waking up early. You're proving to yourself that you're serious. You're building mental toughness. You're developing the kind of resilience that says, even if I don't feel like it, I'm still gonna show up. And showing up day after day, moment after moment. What champions do, they don't wait until they're in the mood. They create the mood by moving. They create the energy by acting. Action breeds energy. That's how champions stay ahead. Not by waiting, but by working. There will always be a reason to stay in bed. Always an excuse to sleep a little longer. But champions are too focused on the mission to entertain distractions. They remember why they started. They remember what they're chasing. And that reminder is more powerful than any excuse. That reminder is what gets them up when they don't want to move. That's what drives them when motivation fades. Because motivation might get you started, but discipline is what keeps you going. And beating the alarm is one of the first steps in living a disciplined life. Champions also understand that beating the alarm isn't just about mornings. It's a mindset. It's about being ahead in everything.
Ahead of doubt, ahead of fear, ahead of laziness.
It's about deciding that your goals are more important than your comfort, that your future is more valuable than your feelings. Champions live with urgency. They know time doesn't wait. Opportunities don't wait. So they move like they're running out of time, because in truth, we all are. And every day you wake up is a gift. Every day you wake up is another chance to become the person you were destined to be. So if you want to live like a champion, it starts with how you wake up. And not just physically, but mentally. Wake up with fire. Wake up with gratitude. Wake up with a plan. Wake up with a plan. Wake up with the mindset that nothing will stop you today. Because when you beat the alarm, you're not just beating a clock. You're beating the old you. You're beating You're beating excuses. You're proving that you're not ordinary. You're different. You're focused. You're committed. And that commitment shows up the moment you rise. Champions don't need a reason to wake up early. Their reason is their life, their dream, their purpose. That's what drives them. And that's what wakes them. And that's what separates them. Champions don't begin their day by picking up their phones and scrolling through endless notifications. They don't start their mornings looking at who posted what or who liked their latest picture. Champions understand that the first moments of the day are sacred. They belong to purpose, not to distraction. They begin their day with gratitude, intention, and clarity before the world demands anything from them. They align themselves with their why, the reason they do what they do. It's not about being busy, it's about being intentional. Every action they take in those first few moments is designed to set the tone for a day of focus and forward movement. Gratitude isn't just a feeling, it's a habit. Champions wake up and immediately give thanks. They recognize that every new day is a gift, another opportunity to rise, grind, and grow. Gratitude sets their energy. It shifts their mindset from lack to abundance. They don't wake up thinking about what's missing. They wake up thanking God or the universe for what they have, for the lessons learned, for the breath in their lungs. Because when you start with gratitude, you see every challenge as a chance and every obstacle as an opportunity. Gratitude gives them perspective. It reminds them that even the struggle has purpose, and even the hard days are stepping stones to greatness. After grounding themselves in gratitude, champions move into intention. They don't drift into the day. They drive into it. They decide what kind of energy they want to bring, what kind of focus they need, and what kind of results they're aiming for. They don't leave their attitude up to chance. They don't let the outside world shape their internal world. Instead, they tell themselves exactly how the day will go. And today, I will stay locked in. Today, I will give everything I've got. Today, I will not be distracted, delayed, or discouraged. That's not wishful thinking. That's intentional living. That's the mindset of a champion. Champions understand the power of the mind, especially in the morning. They know those first thoughts have weight. If you begin your day with doubt, negativity, or comparison, you drag that energy with you all day long. So instead, they speak life into themselves. They remind themselves who they are. They speak affirmations that build confidence and silence fear. I am focused. I am strong. These aren't just words. They're fuel. Fuel that drives them when tiredness creeps in, when stress piles up, when the grind gets heavy. When the grind gets heavy, champions don't rely on the world to validate themselves. That's why they don't start their day with the news or social media. They start with silence, reflection, prayer, reading. Something that feeds their spirit, sharpens their mind, or grounds them in purpose. Because champions know the world is loud. And if you don't set the tone early, the noise will take over. The scroll trap will consume your time, steal your focus, and bury your dreams under meaningless content. Champions refuse to give their best energy to distractions. The first hour belongs to discipline, not dopamine. They protect it like it's sacred, because it is. They also begin their day by visualizing their success. They see themselves achieving their goals before the day even begins. They walk through their objectives mentally before they face them physically. Whether it's a meeting, a workout, or a performance, they've already seen themselves win in their mind. That visualization gives them confidence. It gives them clarity. Champions don't just react to life, they create it. Every morning they remind themselves of where they're going and why it matters. They keep their vision front and center because they know that focus is fragile. And if they don't feed it, the world will steal it. Intention isn't about doing more, it's about doing what matters. Champions don't try to cram their mornings with 10 things. They focus on a few non-negotiables: gratitude, clarity. These aren't routines, they're rituals, systems that remind them daily of who they are and what they stand for. Champions understand that when you win the morning, you build momentum. And momentum is everything. When you start the day grounded and locked in, you're harder to shake. Distractions bounce off. Negativity doesn't stick. And the little frustrations that ruin most people's day, you rise above them. Champions don't aimlessly drift from one task to another. They live on purpose. And that purpose shows up in their schedule, their discipline, and their attitude. You won't find them wandering through the morning, wasting time, or reacting to everyone else's priorities. They lead themselves before they lead others. That self-leadership starts with how they talk to themselves, how they prepare themselves, how they prioritize what matters. They aren't perfect, but they are consistent. Consistency beats intensity when intense occasional. Champions show up for themselves every day, especially when it's not easy. They understand that the way you begin something often predicts how you'll end it. Start the day rushed and reactive, and chances are the rest of it will be chaotic. Start the day with intention and clarity, and you've already built a foundation that can withstand. Champions take full ownership of their morning because they know no one else will do it for them. For they want to live a life of excellence. It starts by building excellent habits. If they want to create success, they must first control their mindset. And there's no better time to do that than at the start of the day. The champion's morning doesn't start when the sun comes up. It starts when they decide that their life is worth showing up for. Every morning is an opportunity to build character, to reinforce discipline, and to chase the vision that burns inside them. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. Champions don't need permission to win the day. They give it to themselves the moment they wake up. Because how you start determines how far you go. Champions don't begin their day scrolling through social media, checking who posted what, or diving into other people's lives. They understand that what you feed your mind in the first moments of the morning sets the tone for the entire day. If the first thing you consume is noise, distractions, and comparisons, you've already surrendered your focus before you've even stood up. Champions don't wake up to see who liked their picture. They wake up to build something real, something lasting. They know that the first thoughts, the first actions, and the first energy of the day determine whether they're going to lead or be led. From the moment a champion opens their eyes, they're in control of what enters their mind. They don't open apps, they open opportunities. They don't waste time reacting to the world. They take the time to build their inner world. Champions are intentional. They understand that focus is fragile, and they protect it fiercely. The phone isn't the first thing they reach for. The mission is, the goals are, the routine is. Because champions know that their time, especially in the morning, is too valuable to hand over to the digital world before they've even said good morning to themselves. Many people wake up and immediately reach for their phones. They scroll without thinking, without intention. And in doing so, they invite the chaos of the world into their mind before they've had a chance to think clearly. Champions move differently. They don't allow algorithms to set the course of their day. They know the price of attention, and they don't give it away freely. The moment you allow the noise to speak louder than your own voice, you've already started the day from behind. Champions stay ahead because they stay focused. They protect their peace, their focus, their energy, and their time. There's a cost to distraction, and champions refuse to pay it. They know that even 5 minutes of aimless scrolling can shift their mood, weaken their focus, and waste their most valuable energy. Morning energy. Champions recognize that mornings are for clarity, not clutter. Not clutter. Instead of letting the world tell them what matters, they remind themselves what really matters. The purpose, the standard they've set for their lives. They choose to begin their day with intention, not input. That's why they read books, listen to affirmations, reflect, meditate, or simply sit in silence. They allow themselves to hear their own thoughts before letting the world speak into them. The average person lives on autopilot. Wake up, check the phone, scroll through drama, step into the day already behind. But the champion is different. They live on purpose. They don't drift into the day. They dive in with intention. They wake up already in motion, mentally already planning, already visualizing the outcome they want. Champions don't let someone else's post or headline define their emotional state. They define their own. They lead their thoughts instead of letting thoughts lead them. That leadership starts the moment they wake up and decide what they allow into their mind. Social media isn't evil, but champions know it's a tool, not a ritual. It's something they use strategically, not something that uses them. Champions schedule time for it, rather than allowing it to steal time from them. They understand that the mind is like a garden. What you plant in the morning grows all day long. If you start with confusion, anxiety, and comparison, that's what will dominate your day. But if you start with focus, clarity, and purpose, you carry that energy in everything you do. That's why champions truly invest their mornings in building themselves up, not tearing themselves down by watching someone else's highlight reel. Champions are honest with themselves. They know they don't have time to waste. Every minute matters. Every distraction delayed their dreams. That's why their phone doesn't control them. Their goals do. Their commitment does. They've trained themselves to delay gratification, to do the hard things first, to pour energy into their mission before they give it away to entertainment. They don't just wake up to exist. They wake up to execute. Their mornings are filled with discipline, not dopamine. They don't need to escape reality because they're busy building the life they want. The first hour of the day is golden. Champions use that hour to get centered, whether it's journaling, praying, reviewing goals, working out, or simply breathing deeply. They use it to win the inner battle. Because if you can win the war within, everything outside becomes easier to handle. Champions don't allow unnecessary input to dilute their power. They stay sharp by staying quiet. They stay focused by staying offline until they've completed what matters most. They know that when you protect your first hour, you control the rest of your hour and control's the key to progress. They understand that social media is a highlight reel. It's often not the truth. It's the polished version of it. Champions don't compare their behind the scenes to someone else's best moments. They don't use social media as a yardstick to measure their worth or their progress. They keep their eyes on their own paper, their own path, their own journey. They post with purpose, not for validation. They consume with boundaries, not addiction. Because they know that if they let the world fill their mind first, they'll lose touch with their own direction. Champions walk into the day with clarity. And clarity doesn't come from a screen. It comes from within. They give themselves a space to think, to breathe, to align. That alignment is what gives them power. Power to make decisions. Power to stay focused. Power to execute. And that power is what separates them from the crowd. They don't need to know what everyone else is doing because they're too busy doing what they were born to do. That's the difference. That's the standard. Champions don't scroll to wake up. They build to rise. They invest in themselves before anything else. And that investment pays off every single day. Champions don't wake up and jump straight into chaos. They don't rush into the day without feeding their spirit first. They understand that true strength comes from within. And before they move their body or chase goals, they get their heart and mind right. They start their mornings in stillness, not noise. They take time for prayer and meditation, not as a ritual, but as a necessity. It's their foundation. It's what centers them before the demands of the world begin. Champions know that without peace on the inside, no amount of external hustle will bring lasting success. That's why they begin with silence, with connection, with intention. The world is loud. Notifications, messages, emails, headlines, all coming at you before you've even had a chance to think for yourself. Champions don't let that happen. They block it out. They choose to start their day by tapping into a deeper power. Whether it's through prayer, meditation, reflection, or spiritual reading, they feed their inner world first. They seek clarity and calm because that calm becomes their weapon. In a world full of reaction, champions are proactive. They don't respond to pressure. They prepare for it. And that preparation starts in those quiet, early moments when they align their spirit with their purpose. Champions understand that when the spirit is settled, the mind follows. And when the mind is calm, decisions become clearer, emotions become manageable, and goals become attainable. That's why they don't rush past that time. They guard it like it's sacred, because it is. It's in those moments that they remind themselves of what really mattered, of who they are, of where they're going. It's not just about being productive. It's about being aligned. Because when your spirit is aligned, your steps are stronger. Your discipline is sharper. Your resilience is deeper. Champions don't start their day scattered. They started grounded. That grounding often comes through gratitude. A champion's prayer isn't just a list of requests. It's a moment of thanks. Before asking for anything, they acknowledge what they already have. They understand that gratitude shifts their energy and brings them back to the present. It reminds them that they are already blessed, already capable, already equipped. And that mindset creates momentum. Gratitude doesn't make champions soft. It makes them strong. It reminds them they've already overcome too much to quit now. That perspective becomes a shield against anxiety, against stress, against the lies that whisper, we're not enough. They start their day speaking truth over themselves, not doubt. Meditation, too, plays a key role. Champions know that stillness sharpens awareness. They don't need noise to feel alive. They need presence. They sit with their thoughts, with their breath, with their focus. They observe, not react. They create space between impulse and action. That space gives them control. It gives them the ability to respond instead of panic. It gives them mastery over their own emotions. And in that mastery, there's power. Because champions don't lose battles to anger or fear or insecurity. They face those emotions early in silence and come out of it stronger. They don't let their emotions drive the day. They guide them. Champions also use this time to visualize the day ahead. Shibai. They don't just pray or meditate passively. They engage their mind. They see themselves succeeding. They walk through their challenges before they appear. They prepare their spirit to handle setbacks, distractions, and pressure with grace and grit. They picture themselves rising, executing, delivering. And that mental rehearsal becomes fuel. It's not fantasy, it's preparation. Champions understand that when you see it clearly in your mind, your body can follow. They don't hope for success, they declare it. They don't wish for strength, they build it from the inside out. Some people think silence is a waste of time. Champions know it's the most powerful investment they can make. In that silence, they gain clarity. And with clarity comes confidence. Not loud, boastful confidence, but quiet, unshakable certainty. The kind that doesn't need to be seen to be real. The kind that moves through adversity without breaking. That inner strength doesn't come from the gym. It comes from the spirit, and champions train their spirit daily. They know that the strongest foundation isn't built from muscle and knowledge alone. It's built from faith, from peace, from stillness that refuses to be shaken. When champions leave that moment of prayer or meditation, they don't leave empty. They leave full focus, full of energy, full of purpose. The world can throw anything at them and they'll still stand tall. Not because the world is easy, but because they are anchored. They've already looked inward before the world tried to pull them outward. They've already declared who they are before anyone else had a chance to define them. That's why they move with quiet confidence and deliberate action. They've already been filled at the source. They don't need validation. They've already been confirmed. Champions are not perfect. They don't always feel strong, but they show up for that quiet moment anyway, especially when they're tired, especially when they're stressed, especially when they feel overwhelmed, because they know that's when it matters most. They don't let their schedule dictate their spirit. They let their spirit shape their schedule. Even 5 minutes of focused reflection can change everything. It can take you from scattered to solid, from anxious to anchor. Champions understand that time spent feeding the soul is never wasted. It multiplies. It echoes throughout the day in how they think, how they speak, how they move. Before the first step, before the first task, champions center themselves. That centering isn't optional. It's essential. It's what makes them durable, focused, calm in chaos, resilient under pressure. It's what gives them the edge. Because when storms come, and they always do, it's not muscle that keeps them standing. It's not strategy. It's what's inside. Champions build that strength every single morning, not with noise, but with stillness. Not with panic, but with peace. And that peace follows them, fuels them, and sets them apart. That's what makes them different. That's what makes them unstoppable. Champions understand the power of motion. They don't wait until the middle of the day to get their body moving. They start early. Let that thought early. Before most people even open their eyes, champions are already putting in work. They understand that movement is more than just a physical act. It's a message. It's a declaration to the world, into themselves. I'm awake. I'm ready. I'm built for this. Movement creates momentum, and champions never underestimate that. They don't start their day slow and sluggish. They ignite it with purpose and fire. They use their body to wake up their mind, and that energy carries them through the day. While others are still debating whether to stay in bed or get up, champions are already doing push-ups, hitting the gym, going for a run, or stretching to prepare themselves for the grind ahead. They don't wait for motivation. They move to create it. Because champions understand that energy doesn't come from sitting still and hoping to feel inspired. It comes from action, from breaking a sweat, from breathing hard, from getting the blood flowing. That movement, that physical engagement is their spark. It lights the fire. It brings clarity. It shakes off the fog. It's the trigger that gets everything else moving. Champions don't treat movement as optional. It's not something they do only when they have extra time. It's built into their routine because they know what's at stake. They know their body is their vehicle for performance. And if it's not running right, nothing else will. A sluggish body leads to a sluggish mind. A tired body invites excuses. But when they move, when they push through that early resistance, they activate something deeper. They tap into a primal strength, a source of energy that doesn't just help them feel better. It helps them become better. They use movement to get out of their head and into action. There's something powerful about doing something hard first thing in the morning. Champions know this. That's why they welcome the sweat, the burn, the challenge. They know that if they can overcome physical resistance early, they're more likely to overcome mental, emotional resistance later. That early workout isn't just about fitness. It's about fortitude. It's about proving to themselves that they can push through pain, discomfort, and doubt. That they don't quit when it gets hard. That they show up even when they don't feel like it. And that discipline bleeds into every area of their life. Champions understand that the way you treat your body is a reflection of how you treat your dreams. If you neglect your health, you're weakening your foundation. That's why movement is non-negotiable. They don't have to be training for the Olympics to move with purpose. Whether it's a full workout, a stretch routine, or a morning walk, they move because movement is life. Movement is growth. Stagnation is death. Champions don't wait until something hurts to care about their body. They invest in it daily. Because they know that energy is a weapon, and movement is how you sharpen it. They also know that movement in the morning resets your chemistry. It floods the brain with dopamine, endorphins, and all the chemicals that drive focus and clarity. They don't need coffee to wake up. They've got purpose, and they've got sweat. They've got effort. While the world is still yawning, they're already building, already sharpening, already outpacing the competition. Champions move early not just to be ahead of others, but to be ahead of their former self. To say, I'm not who I was yesterday. I'm better, stronger, hungrier. Even on the days when they're tired, when the body aches, when the mind resists, champions still move. Because it's not about comfort. It's about commitment. They've made a promise to themselves that no matter how they feel, they will show up. Movement becomes a habit. And that habit becomes a mindset that says, I do what needs to be done no matter what. That kind of consistency builds confidence. Every drop of sweat becomes proof that they're serious. Every rep, every step, every movement is a brick laid in the foundation of their greatness. Champions use movement to align, to get centered, to get focused. They use it as a form of meditation. When they train, when they run, when they lift, they aren't just building muscles, they're building mental clarity. They use that time to think, to breathe, to reset. Movement clears the noise. It brings them back to their core. In the rhythm of motion, they find answers. In the tension of effort, they find peace. Champions don't move just to look good. They move to feel strong, to think clearly, and to operate at their highest level. They also understand that how you do anything is how you do everything is how you do everything. If you move with discipline in the morning, you'll carry that into your work, into your relationships, into your goals. Movement teaches them to embrace discomfort, to trust the process, to believe in progress. Champions don't expect overnight results. They show up daily because they know results are earned in silence, in repetition, in sweat. They don't need to post every workout to prove they're working. They let the results speak. They let the energy they bring into every room prove that they've already done the hard part when no one was watching. Champions move in the morning because they're on a mission that demands energy, stamina, and drive. And they know none of that comes by accident. It's built, it's earned, it's forged in early hours when most people are still dreaming. Champions aren't just awake, they're active, they're alert, they're alive, because they've learned the secret. If you can move with discipline, you can win with consistency, and every morning is another chance to win. But when the mind is strong, nothing can stop them. They also know how easy it is to fall into negativity if you're not careful. One bad thought, one moment of doubt can snowball into a bad day. So champions protect their mind like a fortress. They filter what they consume. Champions don't walk through life aimlessly. They don't just hope things work out, they make sure they do. And one of the most powerful habits they build into their morning is reviewing their goals every single day. They don't write them down once and forget them. They don't just talk about dreams and leave them floating in the air. They lock eyes with their goals every morning, reminding themselves of where they're going and why it matters. It's not about repetition. It's about reinforcement. Champions use this daily review as a way to keep their minds focused, their actions aligned, and their spirit locked into the mission. Most people drift through life. They wake up without a clear direction, going from one task to the next without truly understanding why they're doing any of it. But champions are driven by clarity. They know exactly what they're chasing. They've defined their goals with precision. And because they review those goals each day, their focus is razor sharp. They don't waste time on distractions because they've already decided what deserves their energy. They don't let the world set their agenda. They set it themselves based on the targets they're aiming for. Reading goals each morning doesn't just keep champions focused. It keeps them inspired. Goals aren't just tasks to be completed. They're reminders of who they are becoming. When champions review their goals, they reconnect with the deeper purpose behind the grind. It's easy to get tired. It's easy to get frustrated. But when they see that goal, the vision of the future they're building, they find new energy. It fuels their decisions, sharpens their discipline, and reignites the fire inside them. They don't need outside motivation. Their own vision motivates them. Champions don't just read their goals, they feel them. They don't just look at the words on the page. They close their eyes and see the outcome. They visualize it. They imagine what it will feel like when the goal is achieved, what it will look like, sound like, how it will change their life and the lives of those they love. That visualization transforms the goal from a distant dream into a present possibility. When the mind believes it's real, the body starts working to make it real. That's why champions make goal review a non-negotiable habit. It's not just mental, it's emotional. It connects them back to why they started. Some people forget their goals within weeks of setting them, but not champions. Champions are obsessed. They live in their goals. They breathe them. Every decision they make throughout the day ties back to what they saw that morning. When temptation shows up, they remember what they're chasing. When doubt creeps in, they remember what's at stake. Reviewing their goals keeps them grounded, focused, and hungry. It keeps their mind from drifting and their heart from giving up. Even when progress is slow, champions still review their goals. They don't wait to feel successful before acting like it. They review their goals in the middle of the storm, in the middle of pain, in the middle of setbacks. Because those goals remind them that the struggle is part of the journey. They don't change the goal when it gets hard. They change their approach, their mindset, their effort, but the destination remains. Reviewing goals daily is like hitting our reset on their purpose. It clears out the fear and brings in the focus. It's not just long-term goals that champions review. They also break their vision into daily targets. They know that success is built in layers. One choice, 1 hour, one action at a time. When they review their goals, they ask themselves, what can I do today to move 1 inch closer? They don't get overwhelmed by the mountain. They just keep taking steps, one at a time. Champions understand that the big picture is built in the small moments. And that's why every morning they reconnect with both the grand vision and the daily steps. Champions don't need the world to believe in their goals. They believe in them enough for everyone. And that belief is strengthened each day they read them, speak them, and act on them. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more they see their goals, the more they internalize them. And the more they internalize them, the more their actions start to match. They move differently. They train harder. They speak more intentionally. They're not guessing their way through life. They've got a target and they aim every single day. This practice also builds accountability. When you read your goals every day, you can't lie to yourself. You know whether you're moving forward or standing still. That self-check keeps champions honest. It forces them to evaluate their actions, their habits, and their choices. If the results don't match the goal, they adjust. They don't make excuses. They make changes. Champions use goal review not just for inspiration, but for calibration. It's their compass, guiding them back on track anytime they drift. Champions don't let days go by without checking in with their vision because they know what's at risk. They know that without focus, the world will pull them in every direction. But with clarity, they can cut through noise. They can say no to what doesn't serve them and yes to what does. Reviewing their goals every morning keeps the fire alive. It keeps them driven, disciplined, and dangerous. Because the person who knows where they're going is unstoppable. And champions remind themselves of that direction every single day without fail. Champions don't rely on chance to win the day. They rely on preparation. Before the world even has a chance to interrupt them, they're already in motion, planning out their next moves. Champions don't let the day happen to them. They take control of it. They don't show up wondering what they're supposed to do. They already know. They've mapped out their plan, locked in their priorities, and set their intention. That morning planning session isn't optional, it's essential. It's the blueprint for their greatness. Champions know that without a plan, distractions take over. Without structure, chaos fills the space. That's why they build the day before it even begins. While most people are reactive, putting out fires and answering every call, every message, every problem that shows up, champions stay proactive. They know exactly what deserves their energy and what doesn't. They don't let the urgent override the important. They begin the day with a clear understanding of what must be done, what can wait, and what doesn't belong at all. This clarity comes from the discipline of planning, not just for the sake of being organized, but because their vision demands it. Dreams without structure die fast. Champions build the structure brick by brick, every single morning. Planning isn't just writing down a to-do list. It's strategy, setting goals with intention, aligning tasks with purpose, and creating a system that supports success. Champions break their goals into action steps. They don't just say, be productive. They define what productivity looks like today. Whether it's finishing a project, reaching out to a contact, hitting a training milestone, or solving a key problem, they don't leave it to chance. They prioritize. They organize and they execute. Their day doesn't control them. They control the day. That mindset shift changes everything. The champion's morning plan includes more than tasks. It includes time blocks, habits, rituals, and breaks. They know when they're going to work, when they're going to rest, and how they'll reset if the day goes off track. They don't live in reaction mode. They operate in a system they built to support peak performance. This planning gives them power to say no to distractions, to avoid burnout, and to focus deeply on what matters most. Champions don't try to do everything, they do the right things. The things that move the needle. the things that align with the mission. This kind of planning requires honesty. Champions don't hide from their weaknesses or pretend they have more time than they do. They look at the day with clear eyes and make strategic decisions. If something's not adding value, it's removed. If a task is important but not urgent, it's scheduled. If a responsibility doesn't align with the goal, it's delegated or dropped. Champions are not people pleasers. They're purpose-driven. They build a plan that reflects their priorities, not other people's opinions. And because they do, they win more often. Not because they're lucky, but because they're consistent. Champions also understand that the best plans are flexible. Yep, happens, interruptions show up. But because they have a plan, they're able to adapt without falling apart. They don't crumble when things shift. They pivot, adjust, and keep moving. Their mindset is rooted in purpose, and their plan is built on focus. They don't try to control every second. They control their attention. Even when things go sideways, they return to their core task. Their morning plan becomes an anchor, helping them stay grounded when the storm comes. That stability gives them an edge in a world full of noise and distractions. They don't plan their day just to check boxes. They plan to win. Every morning they ask, what outcome do I need to create today? What action will push me closer to the vision? What task will build momentum? They focus on impact, not activity. Champions don't confuse being busy with being productive. They know that hustle without direction is wasted energy. That's why they don't just work hard, they work smart. They optimize their time, stacking wins early and riding that momentum all day long. When others hit the afternoon slump and wonder where the time went, champions are still locked in. They're not scattered, they're scheduled. They're not guessing, they're executing. That flow state, that rhythm of performance starts in the morning with a clear plan. Champions take 5, 10, 15 minutes to plan because they know those few minutes can save hours of wasted time. The investment in strategy multiplies. It turns effort into results, motion into progress. They also review their previous day. What worked? What didn't? What needs to be improved today? Champions use every experience as data. They don't run from failure. They analyze it. They don't ignore inefficiencies, they fix them. Planning isn't just about looking forward. It's about learning from the past and applying it with wisdom. Each morning they get sharper. Each plan gets tighter. That compounding growth separates them from the pack. While others repeat the same mistakes, champions evolve. Planning also gives them peace. There's confidence that comes from knowing what you're doing while you're doing it. There's calm in knowing your energy is going to the right place. Champions don't live in chaos. Their life might be intense. They're not random. There's order, there's clarity. There's purpose. And that comes from the daily discipline of building the plan before the day begins. Champions don't leave their time unguarded. They don't wander through hours, hoping things come together. They design their day with the same intention they bring to every goal. Because they know time is their most precious asset. Once it's gone, they can't get it back. So they treat it with respect, they guard it with discipline, and they use it with purpose. That's what makes them elite. That's what keeps them consistent. They win the day because they plan the day. Every morning, without fail. Champions know that accountability isn't something to fear. It's something to embrace. They understand that the path to greatness isn't meant to be walked alone. It requires honesty, structure, and someone to hold the mirror up and say, you said you would. Did you? Champions don't run from that. They invite it because they know accountability isn't about judgment. It's about alignment. It keeps them connected to their vision. It keeps them on track when distractions try to pull them away. It's a tool, a system, a mindset that separates those who dream from those who deliver. While most people avoid accountability because it exposes their weaknesses, champions pursue it because it reveals their potential. They don't view feedback as criticism. They view it as fuel. They understand that growth requires reflection, and reflection is clearer when someone else is watching. That could be a coach, a mentor, a friend, or even a daily journal. Something or someone that keeps the promises they made visible. Because champions understand this truth. Without accountability, motivation fades. Without accountability, excuses win. And excuses are the enemy of excellence. Champions hold themselves to a standard higher than what the world expects. They set that standard and they measure themselves against it daily. Accountability isn't an occasional check-in, it's a daily practice. They start the morning by asking, what do I need to do today to honor the standard I've set? And they end the day asking, I loop. That loop of intention and reflection keeps them sharp. It builds integrity. It turns goals into habits and habits into identity. Over time, that identity becomes unshakable. It's who they are, not just in front of others, but in private where no one's watching. Champions don't need someone to yell at them to get to work. They build internal accountability. They've trained their inner voice to be louder than the noise around them. That voice doesn't allow them to slack off. It doesn't give them a pass when they feel tired. It challenges them, checks them, and pushes them. That kind of self-discipline is rare. It comes from years of showing up day after day, even when it was hard. The voice built through struggle, failure, and the decision to rise again. Champions don't ignore that voice. They listen to it. And because of that, they grow faster, stronger, and deeper. They also surround themselves with people who won't let them settle. Champions don't hang with people who tolerate excuses or mediocrity. They build a circle that holds them to their highest self. Friends, teammates, mentors, people who ask the tough questions. People who remind them who they said they wanted to become. Champions don't get offended when they're challenged. They appreciate it because they know real accountability isn't always comfortable. It's always necessary. They welcome correction because they're more committed to growth than comfort. Sometimes that accountability is external, a check-in call, a weekly review, a coach who sends a reminder. Other times, it's internal, a whiteboard, a journal, a list of goals read every morning. Either way, champions, make sure that every day ends with a moment of truth. Did I do what I said I would do? Did I bring the energy, the effort, the discipline I committed to? And if the answer is no, they don't hide from it. They face it. They adjust. They get better. Because champions don't seek perfection. They seek consistency. The power of accountability also lies in anticipation. Champions don't wait until things fall apart to check it. They stay ahead of the breakdown. They review progress regularly. They reflect on their choices. They assess their habits. Because they know the little compromises, the small lies, the silent slacking, that's where momentum dies. Champions protect their momentum by keeping their behavior aligned with their goals. And that alignment is kept alive through accountability. It's like checking your compass before heading into the wild. Without it, you drift. With it, you stay on course. Even in moments of victory, champions stay accountable. They don't let success make them soft. They ask, did I win because of good habits or in spite of bad ones? They don't use momentum as an excuse to coast. They use it as motivation to tighten their standard. Because champions don't just want win, they want sustainable, repeatable excellence. And accountability ensures that excellence stays intact when the spotlight fades and the crowd goes home. Champions also know that accountability builds trust, not just with others, but with themselves. Every time they keep a promise to themselves, they build confidence. And every time they break one, they weaken that trust. So they treat their commitment seriously. They don't say yes unless they mean it. And when they commit, they follow through. That's why champions walk with quiet confidence. They don't need hype. They've proven themselves to themselves. That kind of internal certainty is built through daily accountability, through a record of discipline, action, and reflection. They don't need someone watching to do the right thing. They do it because they built character. They've trained themselves to keep going, especially when no one's clapping. Champions know that the most important promises are the ones made in silence, the ones no one hears, the ones no one celebrates, and they keep those promises because that's who they are. Their word is their bond, not just to others, but to themselves. Champions don't rely on feelings to decide whether they'll execute. They rely on structure, on systems, on accountability. Because they know feelings come and go, but commitment stays. That's what keeps them steady when the storms come. That's what makes them dependable, consistent, relentless. Accountability isn't a burden to champions. It's freedom. The freedom to rise, to grow, to live with purpose. The freedom that comes from knowing they are in control, not of everything, but of themselves. And that's more than enough to change their life. Champions don't start their mornings with random noise. They start with intention. One of the most powerful tools in a champion's routine is affirmations, speaking life, power, and purpose over themselves before the world gets a chance to speak anything else. They don't wait for compliments or external praise. They give themselves what they need. They speak it out loud. They speak it with conviction. They don't just say the words or say the words. They believe them even if they're still growing into them. Because champions understand that your words shape your world. What you say repeatedly becomes what you live repeatedly. The world is filled with negativity, doubt, fear, anxiety. Those things wait for everyone as soon as the day begins. Most people walk into their day already under attack by their own thoughts. But champions have learned to fight back. They've trained their mind to serve them, not sabotage them. And they use affirmations like weapons, words like I am strong, I am focused, I'm disciplined, I am capable, I'm unstoppable. They don't say those things because it's trendy. They say them because they're building their belief system brick by brick every single morning. Belief is not something you wake up with. Belief is built. It's repeated. It's shaped through discipline and truth. And champions use affirmations to build that belief daily. They don't hope to be confident. They program themselves to become it. Even when doubt is whispering you can't, they speak louder and say, I will. Because affirmations rewire the brain. They interrupt negative patterns. They create new ones. And those new patterns lead to new actions, new habits, and ultimately new results. Champions don't speak like victims. They don't affirm failure. They don't say things like, I'm not good enough. This always happens to me, and nothing ever works out. They know words carry power, and they refuse to curse their own progress. They've trained themselves to speak with authority, not apology. They don't shrink to make others comfortable. They stand tall in who they are becoming. Their words are bold, clear, and driven by vision. Because every time they speak those affirmations, they're reminding themselves of where they're going, not where they've been. It's not just about speaking the positive words. It's about aligning those words with action. Champions don't use affirmations as a fantasy. They use them as fuel. When they say, I'm focused, they live focused. When they say, I am relentless, they prove it through effort. The words are not empty. They're a daily contract with themselves. And each time they speak them, they recommit to that contract. Champions don't wait for evidence before they believe. They believe so deeply that they create the evidence. The practice of affirmations builds something deeper than confidence. It builds identity. Most people operate from who they've been. Champions operate from who they're becoming. Affirmations help them lock into that future identity and live from it now. They don't say, one day I'll be successful. They say, I am success. I am purpose. I am ready. That shift in identity creates alignment. And alignment creates action that is consistent, powerful, and focused. They might start with doubt, but they don't stay there. They speak themselves out of fear. They speak themselves into courage. They use their voice as a compass to remind them who they are. Champions don't let their circumstances define them. They define themselves through their words. Whether they're at the top of their game or in the middle of the grind, the affirmations remain. Because champions know that success is not a place, it's a mindset. And that mindset is fed every single morning, one word at a time. Affirmations are more than motivation, they're strategy. They help champions stay centered, focused, grounded. When the world pulls at them with noise, criticism, comparison, and pressure, they return to their core with affirmation. That's where they find clarity. That's where they find peace. That's where they reconnect to their why. It only takes a few moments, but those few moments shape the energy of the entire day. Even when no one else believes in them, champions affirm themselves. Because belief starts from within. They've learned that they don't need the world's validation to be great. They just need to be aligned with their own truth. They've repeated their affirmations so many times that even when the day gets dark, they still remember who they are. That kind of mental and emotional power isn't given, it's built. And champions build it every morning, every repetition, every declaration. Some people think affirmations are silly or unnecessary. Champions know better. They know that the loudest voice you hear all day is your own. And if that voice is toxic, filled with fear and defeat, your actions will follow. But if that voice is strong, clear, and rooted in truth, nothing can stop you. Champions use their voice as a weapon, as a tool, as a source of daily power. Because they understand this simple fact. If you speak like a champion long enough, you'll start to live like one. They don't rely on the outside world to give them confidence. They create it, they cultivate it, they declare it. And even when life punches them in the mouth, they respond, not with silence, but with strength. They get back up, look in the mirror and speak life again. Because champions don't just talk strong, they back it up. And that strength starts with what they tell themselves when no one else is around. That's the habit. That's the power. That's the reason they win. Champions know that energy is everything. It's not just about how much time they have. It's about how much energy they bring to the time they have. And that energy doesn't just appear. It's cultivated. It's built through choices, discipline, and intentional action. Champions start their mornings by energizing their bodies because they understand that a tired body leads to a sluggish mind. They wake up and move. They hydrate. They eat with intention. They breathe deeply. They create momentum early because they know that the way you start your day often determines how you finish it. Most people wake up and drag through their morning. They check their phone before they even get out of bed. They hit snooze. They start with fatigue, stress, and disorganization. But champions move differently. They prime their body for performance. They know that if the body is flat, the focus will be too. So they activate their system. They do what it takes to wake up the muscles, the heart, the lungs. Even if it's 5 minutes of stretching, a quick jog, or just jumping jacks, champions know that motion creates emotion. And emotion creates momentum. They don't depend on caffeine to feel alive. They depend on discipline, on hydration, on movement. They drink water as soon as they wake up because they understand the body's been in a state of dehydration for hours. Rehydration is fuel. It sharpens the mind. It kickstarts metabolism. It creates clarity. Champions don't pour energy drinks into a tired body and hope it works. They feed it what it actually needs. They're intentional about what they put in their system because they know that energy isn't just a feeling. It's a function of preparation. Food, too, becomes part of that energy strategy. Champions don't eat just to satisfy cravings. They eat to fuel performance. They choose foods that support focus, endurance, strength, not things that create a crash before noon. Their breakfast isn't a random afterthought, it's part of the plan. Whether it's protein, healthy fats, fruits, or a shake, they choose with intention. They don't view food as comfort, they view it as fuel. That mindset gives them an edge. While others are crashing from sugar highs and empty calories, champions are steady, sharp, and strong. Breathing is another tool champions use to energize. Deep, conscious breathing activates the body and calms the mind. It increases oxygen to the brain and supports emotional regulation. Champions don't overlook our breath. They use it to center themselves, to energize, and to reset. Sometimes it's not about doing more, it's about breathing better. Champions take moments throughout their morning to simply breathe, to align their body and mind, to connect with the moment before launching into their day. It's a small practice, but one that multiplies energy and focus. Champions also understand the difference between fake energy and real energy. Fake energy is short-term hype. It comes from stimulants, external validation, or temporary excitement. Real energy comes from preparation, from rest, from alignment. Champions protect their sleep the night before because they know tomorrow's energy begins tonight. They don't glorify late nights if it compromises their next day. They prioritize recovery, knowing that rest is part of the grind. And they train hard, but they recover harder because they understand that burnout isn't a badge of honor, energy is. That's why champions also protect their morning space. They don't allow stress, drama, or negativity to invade their first hour. They're not scrolling social media first thing. They're not arguing. They're not reacting to the outside world. They're building their energy from the inside. They know the morning is sacred. It's the launch pad for the rest of the day. If that energy is built right, everything else flows. If it's built poorly, everything else becomes harder. Champions guard that energy with intention. They don't let outside noise determine their inner strength. They understand that energy is contagious. How they show up affects how others show up. If they bring strength, others rise. If they bring clarity, others focus. Champions lead with their presence. And that presence is built through how they energize themselves. Whether they're walking into a gym, an office, a classroom, or a meeting, They carry energy that elevates the room. That's not random. It's practiced, chosen. It's built every morning with small disciplines that most people ignore. Even when they're tired, champions find ways to energize. They don't wait to feel like it. They take action to feel better. They hydrate, they stretch, they breathe, they reframe their thoughts. They remind themselves of their purpose. They ask, oh, what does this moment require from me? And they rise to it. They don't rely on willpower alone. They create systems that support high energy. They know energy isn't just about getting through the day. It's about dominating it. And that dominance begins with how they show up in the first hour. Champions also avoid energy leaks. They're aware of what drains them, whether it's people, distractions, habits, or inner dialogue. They shut it down early. They don't start the day arguing about things that don't matter. They don't waste time worrying about yesterday. They stay in the moment. They protect their mindset and their space like their life depends on it, because in many ways their future does. They understand that the best version of themselves can't operate on low power. So they do what's necessary to keep the battery full. That's not selfish, it's strategic. This is what makes champions different. It's not that they never feel tired. It's not that they're superhuman. It's that they know how to manage their energy like a master. Energy like a master. They don't waste it. They invest it. They guard it. They renew it. And they bring it fully and unapologetically into every part of their life. Because they understand that high energy is high performance. And performance is what turns dreams into results. Champions don't walk into their day without gratitude in their hearts. They understand that no matter how hard they grind, how far they go, or how big they dream, none of it matters if they lose sight of what they already have. Gratitude isn't a soft emotion to them. It's a daily discipline. It's not reserved for holidays or good days. Champions wake up and choose to be thankful even when they're tired, even when they're struggling, even when the outcome hasn't arrived yet. They've trained their hearts to focus on the good because they know gratitude is the foundation of strength. While most people start their day thinking about everything they lack, champions start by acknowledging everything they got. They don't complain about the alarm clock. They're thankful they get another day to chase purpose. They don't grumble about early mornings. They're grateful for the opportunity to rise while others sleep. That shift in mindset changes everything. It rewires their brain to see abundance instead of scarcity. And when you see the world through a lens of abundance, you stop moving from fear and start moving from purpose. Champions know that gratitude sharpens their focus. When they appreciate what they have, they don't waste time chasing what doesn't matter. Gratitude gives them clarity. It reminds them of why they started, who they're doing it for, and what's already working in their lives. That awareness creates peace. It doesn't mean they're satisfied. It means they're grounded. Gratitude doesn't make them passive. It makes them powerful. It makes them powerful. It keeps them centered, anchored, and mentally strong when the storm hits. They don't let setbacks define them. Champions have faced adversity, rejection, injury, and failure. But instead of bitterness, they choose thankfulness. They thank the pain for the lesson. They thank the failure for the wisdom. They thank obstacles for building their resilience. Because champions understand that gratitude isn't about denying the hard stuff. It's about transforming it. When they wake up and give thanks for both the wins and the wounds, they take back their power. They become unstoppable, not because they avoid pain, but because they extract value from it. Even in silence, champions give thanks. Before the phone rings, before the world pulls at them, they take a moment to breathe and say, thank you for life, for breath, for the chance to fight another day. That small practice builds emotional strength. It creates a deeper connection between their spirit and their mission. Champions don't just work hard, they live deeply. They understand that heart filled with gratitude is a heart that won't quit. No, because when you're grateful, you realize how far you've come, and that fuels your journey forward. Gratitude also affects how champions treat people. When you're grateful, you're humble. You recognize the people who've helped you, supported you, believed in you when you were at your lowest. Champions don't forget the hands that lifted them. They don't get so caught up in winning that they overlook the value of relationships. Gratitude keeps them human. It keeps them connected. It keeps them from arrogance and isolation. Even when they're achieving at the highest level, gratitude keeps their feet on the ground and their heart open. Champions don't use gratitude as a coping mechanism. They use it as fuel. They write it down. They speak it aloud. They practice it with intention. They may start their morning list in 3 things they're grateful for: a roof over their head, a healthy body, the opportunity to grow. And by the time they finish, their perspective has shifted. The stress is lighter. The pressure is less paralyzing. They're no longer focused on what's missing. They're focused on what's possible. Gratitude clears the fog so they can move with vision and intention. That doesn't mean champions ignore what needs to change. They're still hungry, still driven, still pushing, but they push with peace. They hustle with joy because gratitude allows them to chase more without hating where they are. They're content, but not complacent. They want to grow, not because they hate their current life, but because they're thankful for it and want to honor it. That's the balance most people never find. Champions live in that tension, grateful for the now, striving for what's next. Gratitude also builds mental toughness. It's hard to stay angry, jealous, or defeated when you're actively giving thanks. Champions don't let negativity stick around long. They replace it. When fear shows up, they find something to appreciate. When discouragement creeps in, they think about how far they've come. Gratitude becomes their weapon against despair. And because they use it daily, it becomes instinct. It becomes automatic. They've trained their mind to find the good no matter what. Champions understand that a grateful heart produces better decisions. It keeps them from chasing validation. It keeps them from making moves out of desperation. Gratitude brings peace, and peace brings clarity. And with clarity, champions make bold, decisive moves without the emotional fog. They don't chase to prove. They move to grow. They don't grind out of fear. They build from a place of wholeness. That's the real power of gratitude. It's the inner armor that keeps the fire burning without letting it consume them. It's easy to be grateful when everything is going well, but champions stay grateful when nothing is going right. They stay grateful when the money's low, when the body is tired, when the vision is blurry, because they know gratitude isn't about circumstances, it's about choice. And champions choose gratitude because they know that no matter what's happening around them, something good is always happening within them. That perspective makes them dangerous because a grateful soul is an unbreakable one. They end their mornings the way they began, with thanks. And because of that, they move through their day with a different energy, an energy that doesn't panic, an energy that doesn't complain, an energy that says, I'm here, I'm ready, and I'm thankful for this moment. Champions don't just win. Champions don't just win because they're strong. They win because they're grateful. And that gratitude becomes the invisible force behind everything they do.